In this demo, this is what the Hedvig installation looks like, in which there are 6 nodes, and 3 of them are in on-prem, and 3 of them are in Azure. And as you see, there is it says one HSP, which is nothing but our Hedvig storage proxy component. So we have 2-tier architecture in which there is a storage backend, and then there's the proxy layer, which sits closer to the your compute applications or compute layer. And there's the one which is talking to your backup applications and translating these storage protocols like block or NFS or object storage to something that Hedvig understands. And yeah, these are, in fact, as you can see, a little hybrid in terms of capacity. These Azure nodes are, let's say, 1.2 terabytes, and these on-prem storage nodes are just 60 gigs. And again, this is not something that we generally recommend. This is just for this demo purpose that I built this cluster, and it's completely virtualized cluster. In fact, this Azure nodes are, of course, running Azure virtual machines, and it has storage assigned to it, and this whole instance becomes a virtual storage instance. And even on-prem, all of these storage nodes are deployed as VMs on VMware ESX host, and I've carved out some disk from a local data store and assigned to each of these virtual these VMs and made them a local or a virtualized storage instance. So this entire cluster pretty much is a virtual Hedvig cluster, but it is managing some capacity. The idea is to showcase how what problem we can solve with using Veeam. So going forward, each one of them have one storage proxy each, and I can show you. This is the VMware ESX I was talking about. This is where these on-prem storage nodes are hosted: Rover 1, 2, and 3, just as pure VMs. And this is the Azure. These are the Azure instances located as Azure virtual machines. Azure Dave Node 1, Node 2, and Node 3 are the 3 storage nodes that I'll be using for this demo. And this is the VM that I'll be backing up using Veeam. So test-win-esxi55y-1. So there's just one of our internal VMs that I stole from one of the users. I hope no one gets angry with this, just for this demo purpose. So what I'm doing here is creating a file inside this VM and just writing some test data in it so that when I restore it in Azure, I know it has worked. So the goal of this exercise or this demo is to back up a VM, and this is a Windows-based VM that I'll be backing up. I could have done Linux as well, because we can restore either Linux or Windows directly to Azure. But as part of this exercise, I'm just backing up a Windows VM, and I just created this file, as you can see in the screen, and wrote some data to it so that I know it has recovered properly. So this is a file that I created. So now let's start with the actual Hedvig volumes. So what I'll be doing is I'll create a shared volume. I can name Veeam backup disk, give it a size. Disk type would be NFS, and this is the optional backup option that I was talking about that you want to turn on when you are using Hedvig as backup target, and which optimizes these backup and restore operations. And when it comes to picking data centers, as you can see, you get an option of picking where the blocks of all the data that you write in this volume, Hedvig volume, should reside. And since this is a dual data center installation, you get these 2 options of whether you want your data to reside in Azure or in SNC1, which is nothing but your on-prem data center. And I'll be selecting both of them because the goal is to back up on-prem, back up this Windows VM on-prem, and restore in cloud. So this is how you create a volume, which is data center aware. The second step is to manage this export, which means assign this export using our Hedvig storage proxy so that it can be consumed by Veeam. So what I'll do is I'll use these storage proxies. So there's one storage proxy each in Azure as well as on-prem. So I'll assign this shared volume to both of them so that this volume is accessible on-prem as well as in the cloud. And so one more thing uh, that I can show you, in fact, is the resize option. But before that, in fact, uh, all this is doing is mounting the volume that we just created uh, to to our on-prem proxy, which can be leveraged by Veeam. And I'll do the exact same thing in the virtual machine or the storage proxy, which is essentially running as a virtual machine in Azure. So this is my Veeam, which is running on-prem. So as you can see, what I'm doing right now is creating a Backer repository using the shared volume that I just created. So let's say you're running out of space. You've created this Backer repository. You're backing a bunch of VMs, but now it's crossing 100 gigs, and you want to expand it. It's as trivial as just going back to Hedvig UI and resizing this volume. And I can show you quickly. So there is a resize option that we have in the UI. So right now, from 100 gigs, I just made it 1,000, almost close to 1 TB, and just click run. So what we'll do is we'll do exactly the same thing for our Azure instance as well. So this is the Veeam instance that's running in Azure, and I'll follow exactly the same steps that I've done for my local repository. So I'll use my Azure-based Linux proxy for mounting this shared volume. And remember, this is exactly the same volume that's visible on-prem as well as in Azure Cloud, and which is being used as a Backer repository at both places. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and back up our Windows VM that we had modified. So we'll create this backup job, and all it will do is back up that test VM, test Windows VM that I was using, in which I created that test file. So now I'm importing exactly same backup in Azure by using the Backer repository that I had created using the shared volume. And you will see that since it's exactly the same volume, obviously the same data that we wrote on-prem is visible in Azure as well. So the folder shows up, the files that were backed up on-prem shows up, so we can use that file to import it. And once that step is done, the second step is to restore it to Azure, which Veeam provides an option to directly restore to Azure, as you will see in the next step. And now I'm in this Azure UI or Azure interface, and looking up the VM that I had backed up on-prem. And as you can see, the exact same VM with the exact same name has shown up in Azure as well, which just got deployed by VM. So the next step is to verify our file that we had created on-prem. Just to verify the size, it was around 40 gigs is what it showed up here as well. So I'll just connect using RDP session to this Windows machine. And there it is. So this is the file that I created, and let's just verify the data still exists. And if you remember that, that's what I had typed in that file.